in 2028. The Chicago Bears are making sure former USC quarterback Caleb Williams will be ready for the 2024 season. The number one pick of this year's NFL draft is getting most of the reps in practice with the starting unit. Early reports indicate Williams has been impressive in the first 2 days of practice. The Bears have already named Williams their starter when they played their regular season opener September 8th against Tennessee. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 is the fastest growing talk radio station in Southern California, home to 50,000 watts and an audience reach of 12 million listeners. KBLA Talk 1580 is a pioneer for Black audio content, including our groundbreaking $2 million climate justice campaign and the most loyal, influential audience. According to an independent research study by the polling firm Reparations, for the second consecutive year, KBLA Talk 1580 is the most trustworthy, reliable, and credible news source for Black audiences and beyond in Southern California. Let KBLA Talk 1580 power your advertising dollars. Our omni-channel custom marketing solutions are specifically tailored to connect with your ideal target audience. We leverage audio, podcasts, streaming, digital, social media, and local activations to get your message out to the Black community. Get in touch with our advertising team today at advertising@KBLA1580.com. That's advertising@KBLA1580.com. KBLA 1580. We've got you Black.
KBLA Talk 1580. It is time for Freedmen Friday. What is that? That is our comprehensive reparations conversation. We do it every Friday around this time. You can find them all on YouTube, hashtag Freedmen Fridays. This is where we aim to get ourselves up to speed on what's going on around the nation and the world in service of reparations for Black people. Specifically, we tend to focus on Black Americans, which is why we call it Freedmen Friday, but we want to know everything that is relevant, and we want to make sure that we have the opportunity to have the arguments in place and the conversation in place to be part of that momentum, part of that progress. So it is my honor to introduce our guest this morning. He is the Director of Public Policy for Leaders of a Beautiful Struggle. He's a Baltimore-based political organizer. The Leaders of a Beautiful Struggle is a think tank, a grassroots think tank meant to advance the public policy interests of Black people. And he's one of the co-founders of that. Dayvon Love, welcome.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for tapping in with us. So at this point, there are so many different iterations of task forces and commissions, which is a good thing, but it's becoming more difficult to keep track of. You're based in Baltimore, and you guys have a citywide reparations commission, right?
That's right. That's right. Our commission is an extension of work that we did on the state level. So what we did was, in 2022, we were clear that the state of Maryland was going to legalize recreational cannabis. And so we saw that as an opportunity to take the proceeds from the revenues from recreational cannabis and have them come back to the communities impacted by the war on drugs. So we worked in our state legislature to establish the Community Repair and Reinvestment Fund, where 35% of the revenues from recreational cannabis goes into the Community Repair Reinvestment Fund. Then each jurisdiction gets a percentage of that fund. That percentage determined by that jurisdiction. We have 24 in Maryland. That jurisdiction's contribution to statewide cannabis possession charges from about 2002 to 2023. And then each jurisdiction has to pass a law that determines how they spend their portion. So it was through that legislative mandate that that fund produced. That Baltimore, the work we did in Baltimore, was establish the Baltimore Reinvestment and Reparations Commission, with the idea being that, again, we start with the war on drugs as the basis for getting revenues into the commission, and that commission will determine how those monies are spent. But the idea being that it would be the beginning of an even more expansive set of policies in terms of investment and repair beyond the war on drugs.
And a couple things, follow-up questions on that. When even here in California, when you get from the concept of reparations to the actual implementation, it seems like things that aren't really reparations weasel their way in. And I wonder how that is, or if that is an issue in Baltimore. Just the name Reinvestment and Reparations Commission kind of seems like there's a setup there for it not ending up being actual reparations.
Yeah, I think there's a really important conversation, I think, about what constitutes reparations.
Yeah.
It's my perspective that, what has happened, over the past, 5, 6, 7 years or so, is that the notion of reparations has been absorbed into the mainstream, right? And in one sense, that's a good thing because more people are using the term. But I think the other challenge is that there are folks for whom are not connected to the kind of political and cultural tradition from which reparations as the demand emerges. So I'm clear that the demand for reparations emerges from the kind of Black nationalist and Pan-African nationalist political and intellectual tradition. So whether we're talking about, Martin Delany, whether we're talking about, Queen Mother Audley Moore, whether we're talking about the Republic of New Africa, like these are all folks, institutions, organizations who are clear about the fact that what's important for people of African descent is our capacity to practice sovereignty and self-determination as the basis for our political endeavors, and that reparations should be the work to invest in the ecosystem of institutions we need as a people to practice sovereignty. And that's distinct from progressive social welfare policy. So you have things like universal basic income, things like, guaranteed income, and those are policies that generally we may, agree are on the whole good policies, but are different than reparations because those policies, those social welfare policies or investment in social programs do not advance Black people's capacity to practice sovereignty and self-determination. And so going back to the commission, one of the ways that we structured the commission in Baltimore, typically one of the things that has happened around the country is that there's a knee-jerk reaction to invest in nonprofit organizations, right? And that's an instinct that I think many of us are socialized into. And what that usually empties into is investments in human services. And so when people think about investing in Black people, the first thing folks think about is human service. But there's a whole range of other aspects to our community that we need investment. And investment in social services, again, doesn't advance our capacity to practice sovereignty. So we were clear in our commission to remove the focus on nonprofits so that it could include things like acquisition of property, right? Or investing in worker-owned cooperatives, right? Or purchasing of land. The kinds of investments that when it comes to Black people, policies typically don't allow for such kinds of investment because, again, it's usually attached to nonprofits. So what we've done is we've structured the commission in such a way in terms of what it can invest in that actually are about the version of reparations that I described that's about investing our capacity to practice sovereignty and self-determination as opposed to, again, individual cash payments, for instance, which, isn't off the table, isn't a bad thing necessarily. But my concern is that much of the mainstream conversations about reparations focus so much on individual cash payments. And all that means is that you're giving people money to invest back in the same system that produced the profit in the first place. And so for us, being able to have the capacity to invest in our ability to have self-sustaining, self-sufficient institutions that is consistent with the worldview and perspective that the demand for reparations emerges from.
A couple things about that. I mean, I feel like there's a dismissiveness by some folks around the idea of direct cash reparations, and you just described it as reinvesting back in the system that exists, but we're working and struggling in the system that exists, and I don't mean to conflate reparations with UBI, but I do think the universal basic income experiments have shown us that when people do have that money, they use it in ways that do advance themselves and their families, and can lead to progress, generational progress for those families. They use it to get transportation so they could get better jobs. I mean, study after study, they use it for enrichment programs for their children. And even though that may be in the existing system, when you talk about the wealth that's been stolen from us, it would have allowed us to at least survive and thrive better within the existing system, which is also important.
Yeah, I think so. Again, I don't think that direct cash payments are by themselves problematic, right? Mm-hmm. The challenge that I'm raising is that we need what is equally, and I would say even more important, is investment in the infrastructure needed such that we can meet our own needs as a people, so that those resources will be more likely to go into those institutions. And so for me, there's a difference between, and I say there's a difference between like harm reduction. Like there are people who are currently needing, resources to make it through the day, right? Or for upward mobility.
Yeah, I'm clear on the distinction between, sort of affirmative action programs or, investing in things that lift all boats. I'm clear on that. So maybe you can clarify or help us understand when you say investing in infrastructure. Now nonprofits are not connected to that, which of course we're having that conversation, as you well know, here in California. Two, who holds those funds and who is buying the land? Who owns that? Who holds those assets?
Right. So for me, just to put a point on the previous point. So in terms of the issue for me is the emphasis on cash payments as the primary mechanism for reparations. And so in terms of the question you just asked, so when we're talking about the community practicing what it means to have self-governance. So the commission in Baltimore doesn't dictate who, but what it does is it provides the community who will be represented on the commission the opportunity to make those kinds of assessments of, which Black institutions are ready for the kinds of investment to be able to manage property, right, to manage land, and be able to invest. A lot of our organizations sometimes don't have the scale of infrastructure to manage large sums of public dollars. So it provides the opportunity, right, for those kinds of investments to help build the capacity needed so that we can invest in the infrastructure such that our community can practice what it looks like to collectively own and manage property, land, investment in, work on co-ops and things like that in a way that benefit the whole of the community. So what I say is when I talk about infrastructure, I'm talking about a wide range of institutions, business incubators, community development corporations, community financial institutions, a wide range that our community needs. And unfortunately, when the government invests large sums of dollars in our community, typically the institutions that are the pass-through are not institutions that we own, control, or operate. Right. So for me, the infrastructure is looking at investing in those kinds of institutions such that we can truly control the resources that come to us from the public sector.
Talking with Dayvon Love, you're welcome to join the conversation, 800-920-1580. I know you're right now looking at expanding to a statewide organization, possibly a statewide, I shouldn't say organization, initiative, reparations initiative. Plus, I want to know what the work on the ground is that the City of Baltimore Commission is doing. We've got a lot to talk about. It's a Freedmen Friday on KBLA Talk 1580.
She's reclaiming her time on KBLA Talk 1580. More First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
All I need is one mic.
With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Tavis Smiley. Just a few short months ago, California Attorney General Rob Bonta filed 11 felony charges against Diana Taran, an assistant district attorney for Los Angeles County. The charges allege that Turan unlawfully accessed confidential computer data, including police officer files in 2018, and continued to use them after joining the DA's office in 2021. Ironically, Turan, who is now on administrative leave, oversaw the Public Integrity Division, responsible for handling high-profile cases of police misconduct and public corruption, including the charges brought against LA City Council member Karen Price last June. To be sure, the case against Price has raised plenty of eyebrows. Indeed, one noted legal scholar has said publicly, and I quote, "Everything about this prosecution reeks," close quote. Could A.G. Bonta, with aspirations to become California governor, be punishing Turan for her role in D.A. George Gascon's police accountability agenda to curry favor with police unions? Could D.A. Gascon be using the case against Price to showcase his tough stance on crime and political corruption as he vies to retain his seat as DA? Honestly, I have no idea, but here's what I know for sure. Karen Price has been elected and re-elected by thousands of voters, mostly black and brown, who stand to be further disenfranchised if this matter is not handled correctly, which is why it matters to us at KBLA Talk 1580. When the prosecutor is being prosecuted, it seems to me that at the very least, there ought to be a thorough, top-to-bottom, independent review of all cases under Diana Turan's purview to ensure that none of these cases have been tainted. Justice and fundamental fairness demand no less, if public trust truly matters. And I hope it does. For KBLA Talk 1580, I'm Tavis Smiley. We welcome your feedback.
Looks like Bobby needs a ride again.
Grab the keys.
Let's take our auntie to the swap meet.
Grab the keys.
Whether you're giving rides or hauling gear, do it all in a Chevy SUV. Head to your local Chevy dealer, where well-qualified buyers get 1.9% financing on all 2024 Malibu, Colorado, Blazer, Equinox, Trailblazer, and Traverse limited models. Chevrolet, together, let's drive.
1.9% APR for 36 months. Monthly payment is $28.60 for every $1,000 you finance. Example down payment 15.8% must finance with GM Financial. Some customers may not qualify. Not available with lease and some other offers. Take new retail delivery by 7/1/24.
Psst. Hey, I have a secret. I use Secret Whole Body Deodorant because more than just my armpits stink.
Oh, can I use it where my bra rubs under my...
Oh, yeah.
And what about down there? You know, my...
Totally. 4 out of 5 gynecologists would recommend it. So I tried it, and now I get 72 hours of freshness. From my pits to my...
Ooh, I love that it's a spray.
Me too. And it comes in sticks and creams too. Go get your Secret Whole Body Deodorant.
The conversation continues right now with Dominique DiPrima on First Things First.
Conversation continues, and you're welcome to it. 800-920-1580. 800-920-1580. We're talking with political organizer straight out of Baltimore, Dayvon Love. He's the director of public policy for Leaders of a Beautiful Struggle, and looking at reparations as we do every Friday around this time, what we call Freedmen Fridays. Dayvon Love, one of the things about your commission, from my reading of it, is that you started with the fund and then went to, a commission. It doesn't say you're doing a study. It says you're involved, that you're over figuring out, directing where these funds go. Is there a study component to it, or no?
So there is no study component to it. And, that was really intentional. I think one of the things that from a advocacy perspective, I think a lot of the efforts around reparations have taken the framework of litigation, even if it's not specifically litigation, like in some cases, like in Tulsa, there's specific litigation. But there's also a framework where there is the need to prove the case and to identify specifically what Black people are owed. And our sense is that we know the system of racism and white supremacy and what that's done to our community. We don't need to continue to prove it, right? And if we have the political will and force to produce a policy that repairs Black folks, as long as there's racism in the society, we should have resources to help us build the infrastructure we need to address ourselves to the conditions and the concerns in our community. So from our perspective, and, in Maryland, we have a large legislative Black caucus. We have a Black woman who's the Speaker of the House of Delegates in our legislature. And so from our perspective, We don't need to prove the specific harm. We know that there's harm. There are plenty of examples of harm. It's really about using the force, the political might that I think, unfortunately, Black folks don't wield enough, and to push through a policy that's going to repair the harm done by the war on drugs, and then eventually harm or repair the harms that have been done even beyond that.
It's interesting, though, because, not just in reparations, in many areas, in politics, when they want to do something, they usually start with a study. And I'm surprised that you didn't get more resistance from going directly to let's figure out what to do with this money and skipping over the study piece, even though I hear more and more people talking about that, even in reference to H.R. 40.
Yeah, I think, one of the things that I'm most proud of LBS, my organization, one of the things that we're most proud of is that the source of our power, the source of our ability to be effective is the basic support we have amongst Black people in Baltimore and increasingly around the state of Maryland. I think many traditional political advocacy organizations, the approach they take is we need to find a person in political leadership, get them to be sympathetic to our perspective, and then from the inside get them to get political leadership to concede that our position is the best position. But we took the position where we have advocates that are in some ways outside of the political establishment, right, but are seen as champions for our community. And we were able to go particularly to Black elected officials and say, hey, we have a base of power in your community. This bill will deliver for them. You all need to go and make this happen. And to give like a specific concrete example, in our state Senate, the bill that established this fund on a state level went through the finance committee of 11 members, and it had 4 Black senators, 2 from Prince George's County, which is one of the wealthiest Black counties in the country, and then 1 from Baltimore County, 1 from Baltimore City. And to their credit, they said to the vice chair who was made in charge of the bill that legalized recreational cannabis, they went to the vice chair and says, this bill's not moving. We have 4 votes that are needed to move the bill out of the committee. We won't move it unless this isn't, because initially what the leadership put in the bill was essentially like another nonprofit within state government that would give out grants. And we were clear that, another entity that gave out grants would give it to the traditional corporate, white-led, big-box nonprofit organizations, right? And so the 4 of them got together and said, hey, LBS says this is what we need. We won't move this unless this is in it. And that's how it got in the bill. And so, for me, that's just a testament to the fact that when we weren't thinking like, oh, what's leadership going to let us do? We were thinking from the vantage point of we have enough political representation that we will hold it up unless this version of repair is in the bill, right? And so that's our perspective. And that's how we're able to circumvent the need for some kind of study to convince, the broader political establishment that this needed to happen.
Of course, Baltimore is like 60% Black. So in a city like in many other cities where the African-American or Black population is much smaller, the conversation may be different, right?
But this is Maryland, right? So this is what we did on the state level, and so Maryland's 30% Black, which is still substantial.
It's still pretty good,
right?
yeah.
But exactly. But I think it's important because I think even in those cases, there's a way that the notion is that if you don't have a majority, that you can't take those kinds of stances.
Right.
And for me, we're proud of the fact that we're able to take that stance and we're able to force the legislature to take up this policy.
And so next, or maybe concurrent step is trying to take this statewide. It seems like people have gone both directions here in California. We started really with a statewide task force, and that has spawned a lot of city and county efforts. But it seems like some places are going the other way around. There's an effort right now to create some kind of a reparations fund on a statewide level in Maryland?
Well, so there are 2 things happening. One is that the fund that I mentioned that was established, each jurisdiction has to pass a law to establish how they spend their resources. And so each jurisdiction is doing it differently. So like in Prince George's County that I mentioned earlier, they've actually taken up a similar framework that we get in Baltimore City. Montgomery County, which is another large jurisdiction, is doing something similar. So different jurisdictions are doing something different in Maryland. There is a desire on the part of our Legislative Black Caucus of Maryland to move a policy in our 2025 legislative session that would be a reparations bill that would go beyond the war on drugs. And so we're actually currently working on trying to influence the Legislative Black Caucus of Maryland to do something that goes beyond, again, what other states have done, which are study bills, right? Some states have, gone to, like I think New York recently just passed a bill that establishes a task force to study it.
Right.
And so what LBS is trying to push our Legislative Black Caucus to do is to do three things. So we have three pillars to what we want the legislature to do. The first is in lieu of cash payments, which, administratively it's very difficult to do. So what we determined was it would make sense to give tax credits, right, to individuals, and given the limitations of the Supreme Court.
Although, to be fair, Harvard just put out a study about how the government is set up to do cash payments, but go ahead.
Right. And so, again, the argument we're making is not that it's impossible, but just the infrastructure it takes. I know in California, for instance, I know there was something that passed that there was money had to be spent to build the infrastructure to give out the money. So what we thought of was tax credit for those, and given the limitations of, Supreme Court, those who are descendants of those that attended segregated black schools of which black students could attend, right? So then that would circumvent the Supreme Court challenge, but we're talking black people that would get a tax credit. So that's the first thing. The second would be a task force that would study the impact, the way that private institutions benefited from enslavement, and would make recommendations to the legislature for redress. And then the third component will be expansion of the fund that I mentioned earlier that we established on the state level through cannabis legalization. But there would be money added to it that would come from a capital gain surcharge, that would come from a change to the income tax bracket that would add additional tax brackets above those that make $500,000 a year.
Okay, right now we're up against the clock here with news, traffic, and sports. Continue this conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
A safe place to go loud. A great place for progressive politics. KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. It's the endorsement heard around the world. Barack and Michelle Obama endorsing Kamala Harris in the Democratic race for president. The former president and first lady released the video this morning showing Vice President Harris speaking on the phone with both of them. Obama could be heard saying, "Michelle and I couldn't be prouder to endorse you and to do everything we can to get you through this election and into the Oval Office." California Governor Gavin Newsom is ordering state agencies to remove homeless camps. This after a Supreme Court ruling allowed cities to enforce bans on sleeping in public. Newsom's ruling only mandates state agencies to remove camps from state property, including roads, libraries, parks, post offices, sidewalks, schools, and playgrounds. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Me and the kids were always messaging. They LOL'd, I ROFL'd, but then I changed phone and the bubbles went green. But where there's a fill, there's a way. And I found a way to share what's in here. I'm tapping my heart.
WhatsApp, the place to safely send messages between different devices. Message privately with everyone.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
LA Mayor Karen Bass arrived in Paris Thursday night to participate in today's opening ceremonies for the Summer Olympic Games. Bass is scheduled to join First Lady Jill Biden and several mayors of European cities in the final stages of walking with the Olympic torch. At the final destination, the torch will be lit, signaling that the Games are about to begin. Bass is in Paris to observe the operations of the Summer Olympics, which will be in LA in 2028. The Chicago Bears are making sure former USC quarterback Caleb Williams will be ready for the 2024 season. The number one pick of this year's NFL draft is getting most of the reps in practice with the starting unit. Early reports indicate Williams has been impressive in the first 2 days of practice. The Bears have already named Williams their starter when they played their regular season opener September 8th against Tennessee. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
To help combat climate change, LADWP is helping neighborhoods have better access to electric vehicles by awarding nearly $130 million in EV rebates to customers just like you. From big savings on used EVs to building new charging plazas, LADWP is charging ahead to help all Angelinos experience the benefits of EVs. Get rebates of up to $4,000 for a used EV and $1,750 for a charger. Learn more at ladwp.com/EV. That's ladwp.com/EV.
Linking social justice and climate justice all year long. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
My friends swim no matter the season, but my moderate to severe plaque psoriasis can sometimes take me out of the moment. Now, thanks to Skyrizi and clear skin, count me in. With Skyrizi, Risankizumab Riza, a prescription-only 150 milligram injection for adults who are candidates for systemic or phototherapy. 3 out of 4 people achieve 90% clear skin at 4 months.
Don't use if allergic to Skyrizi. Serious allergic reactions and an increased risk of infections or a lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check for infection and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms such as fever, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, or if you plan to or recently received a vaccine.
Thanks to Skyrizi, there's nothing on my skin, and that means everything. Ask your doctor today about Skyrizi, the #1 dermatologist-prescribed biologic in psoriasis, and visit skyrizi.com or call 1-866-SKYRIZI to learn more.
The possibility of lung cancer can be pretty scary, especially if you're one of approximately 8 million current or former smokers at high risk. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know that now there's a breakthrough low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early, and it only takes 60 seconds. You stop smoking, now start screening. For an easy quiz to see if you're eligible, visit SaveByTheScan.org. It could save your life. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
We're thrilled to announce that the Dear Future Wifey podcast is now available on the Urban One Podcast Network. This show, hosted by Latiris R. Whitfield, explores the journey of discovering and rediscovering love and relationships. With over 500,000 subscribers on YouTube, Dear Future Wifey has become a prototype for discussions about love and relationships. Learn how to rediscover love, heal, and have faith in relationships. Go to urbanonepodcast.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is the story of the one. As head of maintenance at a concert hall, he knows the show must always go on. That's why he works behind the scenes, ensuring every light is working, the HVAC is humming, and his facility shines. With Grainger's supplies and solutions for every challenge he faces, plus 24/7 customer support, his venue never misses a beat. Call quickgrainger.com or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Ugh, I've been feeling so sluggish and just kind of blah. Been there. That's why I take Align yogurt-coated probiotic fruit bites. But I suppose they taste blah? Actually, they taste delicious. It's an apple blueberry flavored center covered in a yogurt coating and is infused with probiotics to help support a healthy gut. They come 5 in a pouch. I just toss one in my bag and go. Toss one in my bag? Get your own.
New Align yogurt-coated probiotic fruit bites from the makers of the #1 doctor-recommended probiotic brand. Find them in the digestive care aisle.
Tavis is like George and Wheezy. He's moving on up. Last year, Tavis was number 45 on the Talkers magazine list of the 100 most important radio talk show hosts in America. Wait for it. Wait for it. The 2024 list was recently released, and Tavis has jumped to number 33 on the list of the nation's most important talkers, making him the highest-ranked African-American on the coveted roster. Congratulations to Tavis Smiley from all of us at KBLA Talk 1580. We've got you black. Heard any other talk radio lately that sounds anything like this? We didn't think so. You're listening to Unapologetically Progressive, KBLA Talk 1580.
Yes, indeed. It's a Freedmen Friday, and we're talking with Dayvon Love. He is Director of Public Policy for Leaders of a Beautiful Struggle. He's also an author of Worse Than Trump, The American Plantation. It's a book that gives a critique of the American political left and a political alternative to what he calls the exploitative relationship that black people have to white institutions. Well, not a lot to dispute there, but we're talking reparations today. And, looking at an article that you wrote that I saw that you wrote recently, titled what is it? Why ADOS is counter-revolutionary, I think, something like that. And you're arguing here this is my regurgitation of a long article, how ADOS is counter-revolutionary. Let me get that right. You're arguing here that, related to what we were talking about around cash payments, that reparations that do not seek to either dismantle the current system or create new systems outside of American capitalism are problematic. In other words, it's not just repair financial harm. It's taking a position that in order to really be reparative, you have to be outside of the American capitalist system, more or less. So it's kind of paraphrasing what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, I think another way that I would put it is that as people of African descent, it's important for us to be clear, similar to what Derek Bell said, one of the founding theoreticians of critical race theory. America is a permanently racist society, right? So we should not seek to try to make America or to think that America can produce capacity for justice in its current state, but that we need to invest in our capacity as a people to practice sovereignty and self-determination. And so that, and I looked at like the ADOS Foundation. As an ADOS Foundation, it talks about their policy platform and perspective. And when you read it, it is clearly a desire to repair, and from their version of it, invest in Black people's ability to participate in and assimilate into the mainstream project of American society. And that's just a place where, and those of us that are, Pan-African nationalists disagree, because for us, while it's important for us to do things that impact our community in the here and now, right, to reduce some of the harm that's into our communities, our ultimate goal should be to build the infrastructure we need as a people so that we can practice sovereignty and self-determination, so that we're not reliant on the benevolence and goodwill of white folks outside of our community for our quality of life.
Okay, a lot of stuff to unpack there. We've got somebody here who wants to hop in and talk to you, but I got to follow up because I don't want to forget. First of all, there's lots of different groups that kind of fall under lineage-based, ADOS, FBA, some folks call themselves freedmen. There's all kinds of organizations. You assert that you don't think those people are doing the work. Based on just this journey of Freedmen Fridays, I think we're several months into it now, maybe 6, and my conversations about reparations, which go back to the 1990s on the radio. I don't know if that's a fair assessment. I mean, here in California, you have lineage-based folks that sat on the task force that have gone door to door taking, I'm not saying it has to be lineage or it has to be Pan-African that are doing the work, but I see plenty of lineage-based folks that are doing work, real work, to advance this agenda.
Yeah, I mean, the genesis of writing the piece is twofold. One is that, there are, in my observation, there are ways that Pan-Africanism is disparaged by some of the loudest proponents of ADOS. So in part, the response is to say that the perspective and worldview of Pan-Africanism has led to work being done in ways that some of the kind of more prominent, particularly online, ADOS spokespeople, again, aren't actually engaged in policy. And that's not to say that folks that are doing work on the ground are not, but I probably should have been clear about that in terms of who, like the folks who are online, some of the biggest presence of ADOS. And then the other thing I would also say is that, and this goes back to the point I made earlier, that the approach to, moving policy that empowers our community, I think there's a tendency to look at what is the limits politically, what is that political ceiling, and operating from that vantage point. And what we say is we need to organize and mobilize our base as a source of power to make, whether it's Maryland or California or other places, to make these political subdivisions do what it is we want them to do.
Okay, so how do you define Pan-Africanism? Give me your definition of it, because we've had several on this show.
So Pan-Africanism is the unification of people of African descent throughout their diaspora and the capacity to practice self-determination and sovereignty globally. So that's the ultimate goal.
When
of
you say sovereignty globally, you're talking about self-determination. You're not talking about one,
That's right.
The African New World Order, one centralized sovereignty.
No, not necessarily, but just the peoples of African descent throughout the diaspora to practice self-determination.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's a little different than how I would define it, but we're working on with your definition here. And, you said the critique is that Pan-African folks aren't doing the work. I don't see that. I feel like Pan-African-based people have been laying the groundwork for reparations. I also feel like the lineage-based people have created new energy despite that kind of troll element. And also the what I'll call a MAGA element within, that move, that many of those folks, not all. But I definitely see a new energy, momentum, and people doing the work. I think one of the big critiques I hear on that from lineage-based people is that Pan-African folks just want to, they're not recognizing the specificity or the heritage of Black Americans, freedmen, Negroes, whatever you want to call us. And to me, that is problematic. Beyond, I understand your argument about, whether or not we're supporting the American experiment. We can do a whole show about that. But this idea, well, we're all Africans, so, we're all one. So what, you get reparations and you get reparations. And I think people all over the world have arguments for reparations, but this idea that we can sort of skip over the specificity of our own ancestors, to me, is also problematic.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know that I have observed folks who describe themselves as Pan-Africanists make the argument that we should not consider at all the specific condition of Black people here in the United States. I feel like what I have observed more of, and again, this is just from my observation, is that there's a way in which there's a more virulent, non-Black person of American descent. There's a great degree of resistance to even collaboration or acknowledging the ways that even Black folks who immigrated here experience racism, and there should be repair. But again, I think ultimately, both are true, that we should acknowledge the specificity of the harms that's been done by people of African, done to people of African descent here, while also simultaneously recognizing that we are all as a people better off if we are unified across different geographies on our struggle for repair for the harms done to people of African descent by colonialism, white supremacy, et cetera.
Let's go to Jeff calling us from Culver City. Hi, Jeff. You're on the air.
Hey, good morning, Dominique, to your guest and to the call screener. Yes, I know this may sound selfish or insensitive on my part, but honestly, I want my money in my pocket and perhaps a letter of apology from my government. I don't want my money, or my portion of reparations allocations going to some fly-by-night group, some organization, some educational stuff or social program. That's what we pay taxes for. Homeowners taxes, sales taxes, lottery money, and then also, sir, we should also have a choice. Since we're in this so-called democracy, we should choose, like on a letter or whatever, like a piece of paper where, yeah, I want my money in my pocket. No, I want my money to go to children and education.
Okay, hold that thought, Jeff. We'll have Dayvon Love respond to that when we come forward. I'm surprised you even support reparations, Jeff. I know you're leaning MAGA these days, but we'll continue this conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
More of First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
$5,000. That's the average amount of money people in the U.S. are now spending on gas in a year. $5,000. That's crazy. If you drive, you have to download Upside, the free app that gives you cash back every time you get gas. That's right. You can earn real cash back with Upside just by buying the gas you're already buying. You can literally start earning cash back today.
I use Upside every time I fill up, and I've already made around $300.
You're putting gas in your car anyway. Why not get real cash back? If you like free money, download Upside.
I'm saving the cash I earn from using Upside to help pay for a vacation later this year.
Download the free Upside app now to earn cash back every time you buy gas. Use promo code PATH to get an extra 25 cents per gallon on your first tank. You can cash out anytime right to your bank, PayPal, or a gift card for Amazon and other brands. Just download the free Upside app and use promo code PATH for a 25 cents per gallon bonus on your first tank. That's code PATH for a 25 cents per gallon bonus.
Make a move into a home of your own. With City National Bank's Ladder Up Home Loan Grant, you could receive up to $20,000 that you never need to pay back. Use it toward your down payment, save on closing costs, or to buy down your mortgage rate. Find out more at cnb.com/ladderuphome. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Property must be in a qualifying market in California, New York, or New Jersey. Additional terms and conditions apply. Not all applicants will qualify. Terms are subject to change without notice. City National Bank is an equal housing lender. Member FDIC. NMLS number 536994.
Hey, LA residents, it's planting season and the perfect time to get shade trees growing around your home. LADWP and City Plants are giving every resident up to 7 free trees. That's right, 7 free trees delivered right to your door. Trees are great for the environment, help improve air quality, and can help you save on your bill when you use less air conditioning to stay cool indoors. Learn more at ladwp.com/free trees. That's ladwp.com/free trees. Finding a path to a meaningful career, one where you're making an impact and making enough money, it can be tough. There's one path, though, that many young adults are landing on that leads them to careers where they can work outdoors, protect our environment, take on climate change, and get paid while they train. It's the California Conservation Corps. You just have to be 18 through 25 years old to enroll, or a U.S. military veteran through age 29, and you have to be a California resident. That's it. There's no education requirement, no employment history needed. Some Corps members need to finish up high school. Others are college grads. But during their 1 year of service, all CCC Corps members can earn the work experience and certifications needed to become a wildland firefighter, forestry technician, install solar, or build trails in our state parks. Learn how you can enroll at ccc.ca.gov. Do this for you. Become the person you want to be through the California Conservation Corps.
Hey guys, do you want male performance in the bedroom and do you want it now? Get it in 47 seconds or less. For the first time, you can have instant male enhancement. Introducing Nox 47, the topical male enhancement that works in 47 seconds or less. Satisfaction guaranteed. Finally, after years of scientific research, our proprietary formula will allow you to perform in the bedroom like never before. Just imagine that little blue pill on steroids. No reason to settle and wait when you can get instant performance now. Forget about pills and potions that make you wait hours or up to 30 days to work. That's yesterday's news. Nox 47 is brand new. The hottest thing for men. And you don't need a prescription. Call now and get your free supply for a limited time.
To find out how to get Nox 47 for free, call now. 800-617-1621. That's 800-617-1621. Free bottles for limited time. Call 800-617-1621. That's 800-617-1621.
Hey, John, why so glum?
I just got let go. The company's downsizing. This is the third time in the last 2 years. I'm done with this.
Have you thought about My Computer Career? I've heard they can train you for a career in IT in just a few months, including cybersecurity and the basics of AI. And you don't need prior training or experience. Now that's a recession-resistant career.
Wow, thanks. I'll check them out.
Go to mycomputercareer.edu and take the free career evaluation. mycomputercareer.edu. Financial aid is available for qualified students, including the GIL.
This is KBLA Talk 1580, where hate loses and love wins.
And we're talking with author and activist, community organizer Dayvon Love out of Baltimore. He is the Director of Public Policy for Leaders of a Beautiful Struggle. And Dayvon, man, time flies when we're on the radio. So we're going to try to do a lightning round here. Your response to Jeff's thoughts.
Yeah, I just quickly say, I think, like as I mentioned before, I think cash payments is one thing that's on the table. But if we focus primarily on cash payments, we're talking about individual Black people's ability to matriculate up the kind of economic ladder in the society. And I think ultimately we as a people are better off if we have institutions that represent our interests, that have the resources to be able to direct resources to our community and to advance policy that impacts our community positively, and that requires investment. So again, it's a both and.
As far as Jeff's opt out, I mean, who's going to, okay, give the money to society or put it in my pocket? Most people are going to say put it in my pocket. To me, that could be both and, Jeff. Why does it have to be a choice? You say in this piece, the focus on excluding non-American born Black people from reparation demands seems like a pointless waste of time and energy that would be better spent moving policy that could result in reparations for Black people. Seems counter-revolutionary to me. I'm going to say what seems counter-revolutionary to me, and I do see this especially online among some lineage-based folks, is this idea that we need to attack and harass Black people from other parts of the world, and that we need to renounce our heritage, our stake, our inheritance is what I meant to say, in Africa. To me, if I'm owed a debt in the United States and I have an inheritance in the motherland, I want both.
That's right. I agree.
But
I agree.
I mean, but also this sort of, I think, strange idea that somehow Donald Trump and the new Confederate MAGA movement are going to be more effective in granting reparations.
Yeah, I mean, I just find that strange. I mean, you think about the open commitment to white nationalism of the Republican Party. I mean, anybody that believes that will be an outfit that'll advance the interests of Black people is just, this is ridiculous.
There's no evidence to support that. DeAndre Ferguson in the chat says, don't stick your hand out if your people wasn't here when the ish went down. Slavery, Coach Dre. Understood. We know that enslavement happened all over the world, but there are arguments to be made, and I think California found a bit of a compromise that it does make sense that those whose families were enslaved in this country are owed a larger debt by this country. I mean, claims can be made and are being made all around the world for reparations. And to your point, going into private industry, that's going to be a whole other layer. But now when we're dealing with government, shouldn't there be a larger claim by those who are actual descendants of those who were enslaved?
Yeah, and I think a part of the point that I try to make in the piece is that, let's get to the point or actually in a position to make that level of specific demand about how much and who gets what. I think that, to me, and that's kind of what I was getting to in the piece, to me that's a better use of time as opposed to, on this side of things, trying to decide who gets how much. I think it would be a pretty natural conversation that once we get to that point, folks who need more should get more, right?
I guess what I'm trying to get to here, Dayvon Love, is that there is a definite. I think there's so many good points on all sides here, and so many bad points on all sides. But one of the things I hear from lineage people is that Pan-Africanists just want to, hand money to people from other countries without consideration of the debt and the suffering to those here. And part of what I'm hearing from you is that you don't, anything that allows us to thrive within this system is problematic. So maybe we have to wait for a revolution or only build revolutionary institutions rather than repaying a debt in this current system.
What I would say that, and again, I think cash payments is one thing that's on the table to do some harm reduction, to do some, dealing with people's immediate needs. I think ultimately the goal is to build those revolutionary institutions so that we can go beyond just trying to survive in a society that's hostile to our humanity and build the institutions and invest in them so in the long run we can have a more sustainable way to practice self-determination.
And what about Evanston and this argument that I do hear on the lineage side that these more, general claims won't hold up, and even Evanston being sued where they're saying that, being a part of a harmed group is a proxy for race.
Yeah, I mean, I think that speaks to the larger challenge of the Supreme Court and the larger challenge of the, inability to use race-specific language. I think the effort at Evanston is a good start in terms of, putting resources and things beyond just like the kind of human service nonprofit approach.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good start. But yeah.
Gosh, the clock is ticking fast. What are you happy about, or what that's concretely come out of so far from your efforts? Because I know you got a ways to go.
Yeah, we're just really grateful that there are folks in the community, because we're currently in the implementation process of the commission in Baltimore City, and just really grateful that we have, folks in the community that want to step up and that have a perspective on reparations that is, let's invest in our community, let's invest in our ability to do for ourselves. And, it's good to be able to have folks on a commission that is backed by government resources to be able to carry out that kind of agenda.
And when do you think you'll really see the impact of these decisions you guys are making?
Probably in the middle or end 2025. Like once the folks get seated, infrastructure gets built, it'll probably be about mid to end of 2025.
And how do you expect that to show up?
I think there's a pretty sizable amount of resources that's going to go to the Baltimore City Commission. So I expect some pretty big and transformative investments to be made, and I think it'll set a trend nationally. I think it'll be a national model, and the kinds of things that this commission will be able to invest in, and the kind of community control, the ability to invest in what's needed to practice community control and shared governance.
Are we talking schools, banks? Are we talking, community swimming pools?
Yeah,
what are we talking about here?
Well, probably things like property. That's something that, like organizations actually having space, being able to use property in order to generate revenue, investment, things like rites of passage, Africa Center rites of passage, kinds of programs that aren't funded by the traditional nonprofit sector, but that this will be able to fund, being able to fund alternatives to some of the toxic, like Department of Social Services, so like being able to invest in, things like kinship care and, a range of things that I think, again, are typically difficult to get the mainstream nonprofit sector to fund.
Well, hopefully you'll check back in with us mid-2025 and we can see what has been accomplished. I'd love to follow up.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it.
Dayvon Love, thank you so much for talking with us this morning.
All right. Thanks for having me.
It's phone amnesty. If you called already, call again. If you haven't called, now's the time. KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. It's the endorsement heard around the world. Barack and Michelle Obama endorsing Kamala Harris in the Democratic race for president. The former president and first lady released the video this morning showing Vice President Harris speaking on the phone with both of them. Obama could be heard saying, "Michelle and I couldn't be prouder to endorse you and to do everything we can to get you through this election and into the Oval Office." California Governor Gavin Newsom is ordering state agencies to remove homeless camps. This after a Supreme Court ruling allowed cities to enforce bans on sleeping in public. Newsom's ruling only mandates state agencies to remove camps from state property, including roads, libraries, parks, post offices, sidewalks, schools, and playgrounds. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Me and the kids were always messaging. They LOL'd, I ROFL'd, but then I changed phone and the bubbles went green. But where there's a